Welcome everyone to the third Thursday meetup of the West Orlando WordPress Meetup Group. I'm Brian Walton, a co-organizer and host. West Orlando WordPress is an official WordPress Meetup Group affiliated with the WordPress Orlando and WordCamp US Meetup Groups. WebOps and DevOps are relatively new terms in the world of website creation and management. With WebOps, you can streamline your web content and marketing operations to get products and services to market faster. With DevOps, you can optimize your website development and operations to get site updates live quickly. In this presentation, we'll learn how to use WebOps and DevOps to speed up your organization's site creation and update cycles. Rob Watson is the founder and a co-host of the West Orlando WordPress Meetup Group. Since 1996, he's been creating websites for businesses and organizations, small and large. In 2009, he founded webadextras.com as a freelance website design boutique. In 2015, he began to evolve it into a lean, all-purpose web agency. The company's latest focus is concierge style, high-touch maintenance, security, and performance optimization of WordPress websites. Rob is also a space exploration enthusiast. He and his wife, Shannon, are parents to 4 children. At this point, I'd like to invite everyone to mute their microphones for the presentation. Rob, thank you for being our presenter this evening. The time is now yours.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm usually here every third Thursday. It's a little strange being in the hot seat tonight. I haven't done this presentation for our group in a while. So I'm hoping everything goes well tonight, and I hope everyone finds what I present tonight as useful as I do. I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation here. So first, I want to thank everyone for attending tonight. And I'm really looking forward to sharing this topic. It's been very useful to me in my agency and the work that I do. You know, when I worked for other agencies and I've done work for different people, and I'm hoping that you find the value of it as well. My company is WebAdextras. We are currently focused on doing WordPress website maintenance for small businesses, large businesses, and other agencies. So let's move forward. So I want to start out with a story about a job I had a few years ago, actually several years ago. It was with a startup company, and they were just starting to build their dev team, and they put all of us in one room, and we all had like these long tables, and our laptops were set up on the table, and the marketing person sat across from me on the other side of the room, and she was the only non-dev in the room. Everybody else was working on code and working on, furiously on all sorts of complicated stuff, and including me. And she piped up to the group one day and she said, I'm really having a hard time getting what I need put on the website for marketing purposes. I have these campaigns that I'm trying to run, and just, nothing's getting done. Can you guys prioritize my work? And my team lead was like, no, I'm sorry, we can't. We have all these deadlines. We'll get to you when we get to you. And so I was about, I guess, 2 weeks into this gig, and I kind of piped up and I said, well, why don't we just give her a WordPress site? And you would have thought that I had, just killed someone or something. The oxygen just went out of the room. And they kind of looked at me and they said, we are not a WordPress shop. We do not do WordPress. To them, WordPress was the worst thing ever, and they didn't want to have anything to do with it. They said, no, we'll build it for her, but we'll just do it on our own. Well, fast forward another week, and HR handed me my walking papers. And I was just like, what? And they said, well, you're just not the kind of developer we need. You're trying to rely on already made solutions. And I really thought that was kind of funny, because like there was the solution was already there, and all they needed to do was separate their DevOps from their WebOps and let WebOps do what it did best and let DevOps do what it does best. And as the subtitle here suggests, streamline that website creation and management. So organizations, that can't afford to wait, they install WordPress and they give content creation independence to their marketers. And developers can support marketers more easily, and the fact that they don't have to wire up a CMS from scratch. So first, let's talk about WebOps. So WebOps is a portmanteau, which is a combination of words of website operations. It's a set of practices that brings together developers, designers, content editors, and other key stakeholders. Now, with WebOps culture, everyone whose job it is to change a website in significant ways, like code, visuals, content, success measurements, thinks of themselves as one cross-functional team iterating towards the same goals. So WebOps lives on the content side of websites, and it consists of a cycle of content creation, analysis, marketing tech, email, community, advertising, SEO, all of these things that you see here. And WebOps has a lot of different contributors. So you have people who contribute to the social networks that the site is connected to, all the assets that go onto the site, events, analytics and email, community, advertising, SEO, all of those things fit into that WebOps box. DevOps, on the other hand, lives on the code side of websites, and it mostly consists of a cycle of writing code, testing code, and deploying code. But DevOps is also about maintaining infrastructure to enable WebOps. So WebOps can't exist without DevOps, and DevOps doesn't really have much to do unless it's, for at least for websites, unless there's a WebOps to deliver to. So as you see in this graph here, you have a cycle of there's a developer works in his little box, his dev environment. He builds the site, usually fills it with lorem ipsum type of stuff just to fill it in with content. Then he deploys all of that to a test environment. And then when everything gets tested, he deploys it to he or she deploys it to a live environment. And then occasionally he'll grab, what's on the live environment and in terms of content, like the files and the databases, and he'll pull that down to the dev environment to work with the latest content. So content typically lives and is changed on the live environment, and code typically lives on dev and gets pushed to test and then to live. So you have a pipeline between the two groups. So one of the problems that we often encounter when we're building websites for ourselves or for other people, for our companies, is that we have feature block. Feature block means, like, if you haven't set everything up like we're showing here, if you just have everything on the live environment, or everything in a dev environment, but you can't do anything, you can't deploy anything from dev to live until everything is done, you end up with a feature block. So if you have 4 features that you're working on, and only one of them is holding everything up because it's not quite done, you have to wait until that 4th one is done. That's not a very robust setup. So what we want to do in a DevOps, WebOps world is we want to separate out our features into separate sandboxes. So as each feature is finished, it gets merged onto a dev environment and then goes to a test environment and then goes live, while the other features wait their turn and are worked on. So neither DevOps nor WebOps is an island. WebOps and DevOps teams have to communicate and collaborate together. If they don't, chaos ensues and nothing gets done. So WebOps and DevOps have to be a unified and transparent team, and they have to have a similar or same scheduling mechanism to work together. So how do we project manage this? There's something called the waterfall method of website management, and it is a problem. Note here that it's spelled waterfail, and that's not a typo, because websites tend to fail the most when the team tries to do too much all in one shot. So you start out with a budget, and this budget is spent on this big bang relaunch project, and there's a long list of things that has to get done, and the marketing plan starts to collapse under the weight of all of these things that need to be fixed and done, and nothing is prioritized, and everything's important, and nothing can be cut. And by the time you get to stage 4 here, you have stakeholders complaining, you have the team morale tanking, you have bosses who are angry, and ultimately somebody eventually gets fired because of the problem. And so big launch days often go very wrong in this manner. So we needed something that's more adaptable, and we call that agile. Agile is something that came into the development world lexicon, mostly for developers, back in, I think, the early 2000s. I took a course in it from Ken Schwaber, who was one of the original signatories to the Agile Manifesto. I don't know if any of you have seen that manifesto, but when it came out, it was controversial, but it was also revolutionary, and everybody was trying to figure out, well, what do we do with this? Well, in a nutshell, Agile makes it so that we have parallel processes and iterative releases with finished features. So instead of this long waterfall, everything has to wait for everything else, you have sprints that happen in month cycles. And within each month cycle, you produce finished features. You start with a most valuable product, MVP, or most viable product, and you build as much as you can into that that is prioritized and low risk and that can be launched and be useful to somebody in that first iteration. Then you start over again the next month with new features that you add into that, and you just keep repeating that process. And what that results in is websites and other software that are deployable sooner and with less risk. So WebOps and DevOps go hand in hand with these agile processes. Both marketing and developers can use these agile processes together. And at its core, agile marketing is a tactical marketing approach in which teams identify and focus their collective efforts on high-value projects, complete those projects cooperatively, measure the impact, and then continuously and incrementally improve the results over time. So what you end up with is a synergy where everybody gets something that they need. So in the old days, to compare and contrast, in the old days, processes and tools were more important than individuals and interactions. Agile flips that. In the old days, software was dependent on documentation first, and now software is built as the priority over piles of documentation. In the old days, software development contracts were written in stone, and now we prioritize collaboration with our customers. And in the old days, we filled out and followed a plan to the letter, but now we respond to change as it occurs. With Agile, we can quickly adapt to what is going on in the market. We can create campaigns and drive them with data rather than with wishful thinking. And we can experiment, observe, and optimize. We can also build economies of scale more easily with the outcomes of our peers. And when the boss comes knocking and asks why we did something a certain way, we can back that up with data. An apt comparison for this is the traditional intersection at a traffic intersection as compared to the roundabout. Water fail projects are like intersections with traffic lights. They're planned with the best of intentions to be safe and consistent, but the process is rigid and it doesn't adapt to the daily changes in traffic flow. Agile projects are like the roundabout. Individuals and teams are taking responsibility to themselves, with the process providing a framework for dynamic and real-time decision-making based on the available information that they have. So let's again put this in the context of the web team and figure out how all of this meshes together. So features and content we add to the site iteratively will prioritize work against what we'll refer to as growth levers. So up on the top left here, you see measurable growth lever, and those are things such as page layout, user experience, user interface, color, CTAs, call to action, and so forth. These are the big levers. So the growth levers are changes whose effectiveness can be measured with statistical significance. They're things that we can put numbers to. For example, how does presenting two CTAs next to each other compare to presenting a single CTA on the page? Now, growth levers are tied to a North Star metric, and that's fancy talk in business world for single company goal. The company's goal is to, say, increase the overall conversion of your site. If you're selling tickets to an event, or if you're selling clothing, or if you're selling a service, right? You want people to convert on your website. So that is the North Star metric. So the growth levers are tied to that. But a small change to a growth lever won't result in a statistically significant impact on the North Star metric, as you can see with the gear ratio here. But you do know, however, that the growth lever wins are moving your North Star metric little by little. It's kind of like looking at the hour hand of a clock. You don't see it move, But if that second hand is moving, you know that the hour hand is moving. So the key is to do a lot of iteration on growth levers where you can measure impact to move the overarching metric. So said another way, lots of small changes result in a big change. And that's what Agile is all about, and WebOps in general. So broadly, smooth WebOps and DevOps involves making big changes over time by infusing the Agile methodology into all of your workflows, and then putting together a collaborative team that favors the best technologies and keeps an eye on that far end of the roadmap of the site. So what I want to do next is I want to leave this the slideshow here, and I want to kind of demonstrate what that looks like in general. So I'm going to switch over my screen here. If I can find Zoom. There we go. So we're going to do, make sure. All right. Hopefully everybody can see this. So what I have here is a demonstration site called Epic Expeditions, and they are a fictional travel agency that wants to explore the world, right? And ignoring the ipsum lorem ipsum content for now, let's just pretend that this site is launched, right? Marketing has identified their MVP, right? So they've said, we just need a homepage. We need something for people to see. We're a new company. We haven't worked out all of our stuff yet, but what we want to do is display something that we're available, that people can know who we are and that they can interact with us in some way. So they've created a single homepage landing page with, at the very bottom, some contact ability. So they're ready to launch the business. So contrary to my earlier story about not being able to get work done, as an agile team, they're able to work with DevOps to get code written and things that need to be done. But because WordPress is so simple and intuitive, they're able to do the majority of the content work on their own site. So we're going to fast forward a little bit here. I'm just going to, let's see, give me a second. I'm going to switch over here. So they're going to publish some new pages. So the next thing that they want to publish is, let me just pick that out. They're going to publish, let's say they do the about page. All right, so now we fast forward a month and they built the about page, or even less than a month. So now we have the about page here in the top nav. So marketing has done its job. WebOps is cruising right along, and they've built all of their content, and they've added their videos, and everything is marching along. So at some point, somebody says, "Hey, wait a minute, I need a plugin update. How can I get that done?" Well, WebOps typically is not going to want to deal with, well, what if we update the plugin and the site breaks? Or what if we need extra custom functionality in another plugin to supplement what the plugin isn't doing? So who do they turn to? They turn to DevOps, right? So DevOps jumps into the mix and it says, okay, we've got your back. So we're going to build your code and do everything for you there. So they jump into my favorite hosting system, which is Pantheon. Everybody who knows me knows that I love Pantheon. And the reason that I love Pantheon is that because it has the typical DevOps and WebOps workflow. So when you're in the dashboard of the hosting for Pantheon, it looks something like this. You have your DevOps team working on dev and test, and WebOps also works with test. But your DevOps team has all the command and control over the code. So you can see here there's a log of everything that they've been doing, right? They initialized the site, they added plugins, they added another plugin, and then they upgraded WordPress to 6.3, added more code. They did some testing on PHP 7.4. Some more breakdance plugin updates and so on. So they've been working in here independently of WebOps, but they're supporting everything that WebOps is doing. So now it comes time and dev says, okay, well, what's the plugin that you wanted updated? So WebOps says, hey, yeah, we just need the WooCommerce plugin updated because we're building some WooCommerce functionality, and there's something new in the new version of WooCommerce that we need, right? So the DevOps guy comes in here and he says, okay, I'll update that for you. Now, the reason that we don't want to do that on the WebOps side is because WebOps is concerned with the live site. And it's always a bad idea to update your plugins and your code on the live site, because if something goes wrong and your site gets bricked or you can't sell anymore, you've got problems. So DevOps comes in here and he says, all right, I'm on the dev site and I'm just going to click on that update for WooCommerce. So that's a code operation, not a content operation. So that's chugging right along here. WooCommerce takes a minute usually because it's kind of big. So while that's happening, everybody's thinking about, okay, what are we going to do to test this? So that's what the test tab here is for in the Pantheon workflow system. So the test tab allows you to clone all the content from live down to the test environment and deploy code from the dev environment up to the test environment, so that everybody can look at what would it look like if we launched this live. The test environment is built like the live environment, so you can test everything as it would happen on live and have a high degree of confidence that your changes will be correct. So let's check on our plugin update. Oh, good, it's all done. So DevOps says, all right, cool. I'm just gonna, open that up and just see if everything looks all right. Just visit the site real quick. Okay, the general site is not broken. Cool. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna just go ahead and commit all that code. Added or updated WooCommerce. I'm going to commit that code. That'll take a few minutes. Hopefully less. And what's going on here in the background is all of this code is being tracked by a system called Git. Git actually keeps track of all the changes so that if something happens to the code and you need to roll back, you can use an ID number and just say, hey, roll me back to this, to just before this ID number, which, roll me back to just before I made this change, so that anything that breaks, we can immediately undo. It's like a great big undo button. Cool. So now that everything is committed, we have our updated WooCommerce here. We go to the test site and we look and we see the deploys tab. Oh, look, we've got a deployment here. So whoever's in charge of tests says, oh, great, I see that WooCommerce has been updated. I'm going to pull that in here, but I'm also going to pull the files from the database from the live environment down to test so that we have all the latest content, right? So updated WooCommerce, deploy. So all that code that got changed on development gets dumped into test, and all the content that is new from live also gets dumped onto test. And meanwhile, while all this is happening, live is still editable. Like, people can still work with live. So they're not waiting, they're not freezing the site so that all this other stuff can happen first. They're able to continue forward. And anytime that, let's say they add another 5 blog posts or they add a whole bunch of new content to the about page, at some point, test is going to want to know about that. And so they can just go ahead and just clone that back down from live. So they can get an automatic update from live anytime they need it. So I'm just going to refresh this and make sure that it is done. Okay, so test now looks like live. So if I look at the pages here, everything's all refreshed. I have to log in again. And I'll refresh here and we'll see that, oh, look, there's the about page. Great. And so we can test our site and we see that everything is working correctly. And then we can go ahead and deploy up to the live site. So we can do this cycle over and over again and over again. And it's that iterative approach called Agile that works hand in hand with the WebOps and DevOps philosophy that lets us deploy as many things as we need to in a lower risk way. So I could go through and show all the rest of it, but I actually want to leave more time for questions and for socialization, et cetera. So I'm going to stop here, but I'm just going to open the floor up for any questions people have.
Thanks, Rob. That was really excellent. You got us into some really some new territory for me anyway, so I'm sure we all appreciate it. And now we can get into the questions and answers. And hope to see you all in our next session coming up soon.